All right, U.S. Congress, a legislative branch. The Congress is the first branch of the government. It's the first article in the Constitution. It's no accident. It's the central first article in the Constitution and the largest. Our founders wanted this to be the key instrument of the government, the key institution. Our Congress in the Constitution has express powers. Congress can tax and spend, raise an army, declare war, regulate commerce, especially between the states, coin money, and make all laws necessary and proper, the elastic laws. Congress is the most important representative institution in our government. And when you look at the worldwide, the institution of our Congress is one of the strongest pieces of any government in the world. Each member of our Congress has a constituency. These are the people that make up their voters, the people in the area that elect them. Each of these members of Congress represent their district, and they can provide assistance to their district in many ways. They can help individual constituents. This is helping someone with maybe who has an issue, a local issue. They need help with a passport, something like that. They can do help support and promote legislation that helps their district, economy, bringing benefits back, pork barrel benefits. This is where Congress people bring money from the federal government back to their local district. So there's lots of ways Congression people and senators, they can help bring back and represent for their district. You can say that they're a delegate for their district. This is where pretty much they're sent from their district to come to Washington to represent them and to vote what they would prefer, a delegate. Or you might say they are more resemble a trustee. The voters send them there, but they go there to try to make what they would think is the bigger picture to help the country and their constituents. Not exactly voting with maybe what the constituents would prefer. It's a trustee. Our Congress, via the Constitution, is of course bicameral. We have two chambers, a Senate and a House. The Senate has only 2 senators for each state, so there's 100 of them. The House is much larger, 435. Combine them together and you have the Electoral College total. So the House is much larger, so individual senators are more powerful, the smaller than them. The House is more structured, there's more leadership rules, and the Senate's going to be more of a talking unit, a place for longer debate. So who runs for these offices to be a congressman or a senator? A lot of times there's common things about them. These are ambitious people. They know how to raise money. A lot of times they may have money on themselves. They have some kind of political base. They can be famous within their district or able to get more famous in their district. And they may be charismatic. People may want to follow them. Incumbency is where you're already the current congressman or senator. And this is a pretty strong advantage. Incumbents have already won. They're able to bring back help for their district via casework, doing things for individual people, bringing money back, pork barrel legislation, bringing money for highways, health, might be a special project, special buildings. And of course they have better name recognition. Real quick question, and you may see this later on your quizzes. Can you name the member of Congress who represents you? They do, every 10 years, they do a census, and this is where state legislatures in all the states can redraw their House districts. This makes up the House representatives. So they get to redraw it. States also will lose and gain representatives. You can see here on this map the differences in number of representatives in different regions. So Pennsylvania may go from 21 electoral college votes and, 19 representatives, 2 senators, down to 19. They may lose 2. Texas may gain 1. California may gain 1. And here's gerrymandering, which means, the state legislatures, they help write the districts, draw the lines. You have to have a certain amount of people in them. but they try to draw the lines usually to favor with the party that they're under. And here's our local San Diego districts, how they're currently drawn, and they, in 2010, had a dramatic change. My district changed, actually. So another way, now let's talk about how the legislature is organized. Really, it's based on party. So the Democrats have their caucus, the Republicans their conference. Each side, whether they're the majority or the minority, are going to elect a Speaker of the House and a Majority Leader. These would be the party that's currently has the most representatives. And the minority will have a Minority Leader. And they also have whips. These leaders help control the party, organize the legislation that's going to get passed. If you have some time, I recommend this hilarious Seinfeld video where Kramer gives a terrible definition of what a whip is. Really, they're just people who help gather vote counts. The legislature is also organized in committees, and these committees are really important when it comes to legislation creation and also in oversight, congressional oversight. Each, the Senate and the House, have similar jurisdictional committees. These are committees that cover certain subjects, which we'll see in a second. And these committees are gatekeepers. They decide if, policy or legislation, should we even consider a change? And should it even be brought up before the entire Senate or entire House? It's going to go through committee first. So here's a list of some of the most important committees in the Senate and the House. Agriculture or Armed Services. The House Ways and Means Committee is extremely powerful. This is where all taxes and spending and budgets really come from. So each member of the Congress has a staff. These staffs have grown. Each committee has their own staff. These people do a lot of the legwork. So now we're going to go over how a bill becomes a law. And this is a complicated process, but basically, individual member is going to introduce a bill, and, the leader of the House and Senate is going to refer it to a committee that would likely make jurisdictional sense. A foreign relations issue, agriculture issue, they're going to go to those specific committees. Then it's going to be debated within this committee here. And it'll likely actually go to a subcommittee within that committee. And it's going to need to get support from that subcommittee and that committee to get out. And you'll hear about certain judges are being vetted in the judicial committee, and it may not even leave that committee. That person may never be put off on the Senate floor. So all 100 could vote. A person or the law, a lot of times they can die in the committee, never get out. In the House, once a bill it makes it through the committee, right? The committee approves it. It goes to the Rules Committee, and this is going to set the standard for how the bill is going to be shown to the entire House of Representatives. Whether it be a closed rule, meaning this is the bill as it is, you have to vote on it, or if it's an open rule, meaning individual congressmen can vote to add an amendment to the bill, make a change to it. Each amendment would be voted on. So you can see that if you wanted a bill just to get through faster, you would not want it to go through a lot of amendment process, because certain congressmen who oppose a bill could just be offering up lots of amendments to foil the bill and stop it. Now in the Senate, there's more open debate, and there's something that's not in the Constitution, but it's a Senate institution called the filibuster, which means that unless there's 60 votes of cloture, 60 of the 100 senators agree, someone can keep talking and make a bill die. A lot of times there's traditional filibusters where someone actually speaks, like Rand Paul has done, to actually stop it, but there's other ways to do it, less grandiose, that will just kill a bill. This was happening with the current government shutdown. So when both the House and Senate each pass a bill, then they must either, one side needs to pass the other's version, either the same, or it needs to go to a conference committee, or each side sends members who will make the law work together. They'll reconcile, make it into one same legislation that will pass both houses. This happened with the latest tax cut bill. The House and Senate each had a version, and the conference committee, made it all the same, and they voted again to approve it. Then once the House and Senate, both majority, approve a bill, it goes to the president, and he can sign it, and then it becomes law. And then here's this process broken down by chart. It looks a little crazy, but if you look at it, it makes sense. We can talk more about a president's veto in next week's lesson. So we're just going over a couple examples. The Obamacare Affordable Health Care Act. This was a major legislation, went to many committees. Obviously, healthcare touches so many different parts of our society. So a lot of committees. They had, the Democrats at the time had filibuster proof 60 votes, but then they lost a vote in Massachusetts. And so they had to use reconciliation, where you say this bill is just about money and you get it changed without the filibuster coming into play with the straight majority vote. So a lot of things came into play for this legislative process. Your text also talks about the Patriot Act, how in 2013 the House passed, to reaffirm the Patriot Act, and in the Senate, via Rand Paul's filibuster, the Senate was able to use a deliberative process to change a lot of the bill, and the House then just accepted the Senate's version. So you can see the bicameral process at work here. Just real quick, that when you have a lot of members, you have to get more than 200 or so House members to vote on something and over 50 senators. You're going to have legislation that you're going to want benefits to spread out as wide as possible. And they call this a distributive tendency, where most people want benefits to go to their district, or at least be seen by their constituents to be beneficial. And how are these congressmen making these decisions? They're thinking about what their constituents want, how they'll be seen by their constituents. Interest groups, of course, are affecting this legislation, especially in the committee process, lobbying during smaller details that will not be seen much by the media or public. And of course, what your party's voting and wanting you to do has a strong impact. There's lots of other things that the U.S. Congress does. The Senate is the advice and consent of presidential appointments. These are like for Secretary of State and all the federal judiciary positions. Then we have oversight. Committees, as we discussed in Congress, they will cover certain issues and they'll talk to the executive branch, say, hey, are you guys doing a good job with this environmental protection? Or maybe we think you stepped out of your bounds, the IRS. A few years ago, they do even broader national issues. They brought former baseball players accused of steroids, saying, hey, this is a national issue. We want to know what's going on. Of course, the Senate also ratifies treaties, and the House is in charge of impeachment of the president, and the Senate will be the actual jury to whether to make guilty or not. And this next topic is too much for today, so thank you, everyone.